Good morning, afternoon and evening to our audience today. Welcome to the latest webinar hosted by Device Authority with special guest Dell EMC. My name is Rosa Lenders and I am very pleased to welcome our key speakers for today, John Hollerin and Rob Dobson. John has been with Dell in a variety of positions over the last 22 years. He has spent the last 3 years in the OEM organization, focused on the security and surveillance vertical. In this very fragmented market, John helps his customers stay focused on what they do best, focusing on their IP. Rob is Pre-Sales Director for EMEA at Device Authority. He is responsible for the technical side of the sales team, taking our technology to our alliances, partnerships, and customers. We expect the webinar to last approximately an hour, and you will be able to submit questions via the chat window in the GoToWebinar control panel throughout the session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar. Contact details are included in the final slide, so if we are unable to cover your question today, or should a question arise afterwards, please contact us. A recording of the webinar will be made available tomorrow on the Device Authority website, and everyone who registered will be emailed the link. I shall now hand over to our speakers, John and Rob.
Thank you, Rosa, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome everybody to this webinar, and thank you all for attending. Today, myself and John would like to talk to you through the following topics. I want to give you an introduction today from a Device Authority and Dell EMC. We want to talk you through the importance of IP cameras and IoT and what's happening in the market for those segments. We also want to talk around strengthening security for our IP cameras and how you automate security for those cameras for efficiency at scale. And then I'm going to give you a demonstration of our KeyScaler platform delivering certificates to those cameras in a demo scenario. And then we'll go to some Q&A. So as some of you may be aware, Device Authority is an IoT security automation company. Our vision is to secure and provision applications, data and devices without human intervention. So that's simply innovating solutions to address the challenges of security and the Internet of Things. We are helping our customers simplify the process to establish a robust end-to-end security architecture within IoT and deliver efficiency at scale through security automation. On this slide here, you will see we have launched our KeyScaler platform in 2016. That was in September last year. And you can see here that we've got a number of partners in our ecosystem, specifically looking at cameras today. So I pulled out 3 examples. Those are Access Cameras, Access Communications, which is a leading player in network camera solutions. Milestone, who are a leading US manufacturer, a global leader in IP camera management, and Seneca, who are a leading US manufacturer of computing technology for security and surveillance solutions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you over to John, who's going to give you an introduction to Dell EMC. So John, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time today to get together and better understand Dell and Device Authority and how we are helping the video surveillance market. I'm going to start off briefly by kind of covering, we're very excited that we've finished the acquisition of EMC. Dell is in the process of finishing up their year-end, which ends at the end of January. And then beginning of February, we become a fully 100% integrated sales teams functioning organization. I spend a lot of time out in front of customers and providing a high level of visibility of what is really in the portfolio. I get a lot of, I had no idea that all of that existed today, so I'm going to hit this real quick. Dell Technologies is an umbrella organization. Has clearly all of the Dell portfolio, so from a client perspective, the most secure laptops in the industry, workstations, tablets, ruggedized equipment both on the tablet and laptop side as well. And then on the enterprise side, server storage, networking platforms. Pivotal was part of the EMC family, and that is a platform that's changing the way that companies take their software to market, whether that's in the cloud or on-premise. It provides a new and very fast way to deploy applications on independent platforms, so not locking you into an individual provider. SecureWorks was owned by Dell. We took them public a couple of months ago. They are still wholly owned through the Dell Technologies umbrella. SecureWorks provides full managed service capabilities, including the ability to do red team testing, penetration testing, managed services. If you are compromised in any way, we have folks that can be in seats in a matter of hours to help understand what's going on from a compromised situation, help to resolve and make that move forward. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. VirtuStream, also out of the EMC portfolio, helps customers take on-premise applications and make them portable to a variety of different cloud platforms, again, making them very portable across cloud versus locking into any one individual cloud provider. From a VMware perspective, most people know that technology. It's a great virtualization and cloud-based platform, as well as a full suite of management applications to help customers solve their virtualization problems. RSA is also out of the EMC portfolio and provides a nice suite of security tools, as well as the ability to understand, manage, monitor risk and compliance within organizations. And then, of course, you have the EMC core portfolio of storage platforms, plenty of technology in that space. It's a very exciting time right now. As I'm out talking to customers, they seem to be even more excited than we are inside of the company. But you will see us all kind of come together and come as and really focus on our customers moving forward. Go ahead, Rob, to the next slide. So what does that mean for our customers? If you think of taking that incredible EMC portfolio and the Dell portfolio and bring those together, we are number one in a variety of different areas around converged infrastructure, clearly taking the storage from Dell plus the storage from EMC is now brings us a very broad portfolio and be able to address really any market segment in that space. Number one in virtualizations, we have had the most secure laptops for a number of years. Very happy and focused in that particular space. Cloud is interesting. You know, a couple of years ago, we thought we would get into the public cloud space, and we quickly realized that we were competing with ourselves. We are the number one supplier of compute to public cloud companies, as well as we see our customers who have gone and jumped in and gone to public cloud and realized that that's not the right mode, whether it's cost or lock-in strategy, and coming back closer to more of a hybrid strategy where you have some on-premise capability leveraging, you know, a VMware infrastructure, but being able to make that portable so you can deal with sandbox technology, test dev, operations, all those kinds of things. Most importantly, our beliefs and core values in this combined company have really stayed exactly the same. We are totally focused on driving the cost and complexity out of these solutions. If you look at our cloud platforms, we have these highly designed, tuned, tested reference architectures for Oracle, SQL, Azure, Hadoop, Cloudera reference infrastructures. Instead of our customers piecing together server, storage, network, and compute and trying to find the right hardware, we have validated solutions where it becomes very easy for you to take that as a baseline and then immediately get to work and put your data to work so you can gain some insight out of everything within your infrastructure. Next slide, Rob. Clearly, we don't have all of the technology within our portfolio, and we have a very valuable set of partners. This is a subset. Since we're talking about video surveillance today, I pulled kind of some of the key partners that we have in this particular space. You know, looking at, I work in the OEM organization, so many of these customers are OEM customers where they are leveraging the cloud platforms that I just described, the server platforms, where we've gone in and provide highly tuned, tested server storage network equipment and make that available to them so that they can focus on their IP and get their products to market quickly. A variety of different security partners, video surveillance and VMS platforms. The other big thing I would say here is we're also helping our customers who may have a video surveillance need, and we are now making our partners, our hardware and technology, as well as our OEM customers, putting that all together and making that available so that any customer that needs some type of video surveillance solution for their business, we can address all of those needs through a single vendor versus, again, customers having to spend the time dealing with 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different vendors to kind of piece this stuff together. Go ahead, Rob. So what does that mean from a video surveillance portfolio? If you look at the video surveillance marketplace today, regardless of whether you need a distributed solution in, say, a retail environment, or you want to centralize multiple buildings across a city or even a country, or you want to be able to take advantage of cloud-based technology, we have the right set of capabilities across those different environments. We're starting to see heavy growth in the virtualized and hybrid cloud platforms, but clearly there's plenty of physical server compute platforms as well as a lot of storage out there. One thing that we're going to spend quite a bit of time on is addressing the security. For years in the video surveillance space, security it's always been complex. There's no doubt about that, but it's no longer an option. And if you think of the teams that are deploying video surveillance solutions today, they're typically on the operations side of things and not necessarily on the IT. And then they go and have a conversation with IT and recognize IT's like, I'm not putting that on there without having some form of, security, or you haven't thought about security as you're designing these systems. We want to make that incredibly easy. And without a doubt, Device Authority now has this automation technology that we're going to get into that really, really helps to manage certificate management and users. There's other layers of security which I will cover as well. And then that being a platform that is easy to deploy in each of those different environments, we have a variety of partners like Genetec and Milestone and Verint and others that provide VMS-based solutions. There's all kinds of analytics partners that we have, as well as full application solutions. We also provide to our customers, similar to how I described the cloud reference architectures, we have fully validated surveillance solutions that we publish up on Dell EMC/surveillance that are very solid reference architectures that kind of bring all of these parts and pieces together, and you'll continue to see us deploy more of those solutions going forward. Go ahead, Rob, to the next slide.
So thank you for that, John. I think the next section really here is with you again, and we're going to be talking about the importance of IP cameras and IoT and the market trends for those type of cameras.
kind of drilling into an example of what I was just describing. In video surveillance space, there's been, a lot of record and forget is some of the terms that kind of are out there. You have all of this content, recording it out there, and you only gain access to it when you need to. As you see these initiatives around smart city and smart transportation, it is critical to both capture video and create metadata and understanding of what's in that video at the point of creation. But that's just, again, a subset of the information necessary. In this instance, we are the first ones to come out with a data lake-based solution focused in the surveillance space. And what do we mean by data lake? If you think about how do you go and address a particular crime, you need information from a variety of different sources. Today, a lot of video surveillance solutions are very much deployed in siloed-based solutions, meaning state and local governments deploying a particular solution, jails will provide a different solution. They're not all consistent, but you still have the ability to put in the concept of a data lake, which is a large repository that can take inputs from a variety of data out there. So taking your digital evidence, taking audio from gunshot sensors, lawful intercept interviews, crime scene information, being able to tie that together with record systems from county, jail, municipality, tying that to weather, census, social. There's all different sorts of data. Being able to put that into a single repository and run analytics on top of it, that's very much a capability of what Pivotal can provide. And it helps you very quickly to narrow down and bring together so you can quickly assess commonalities across these different sets of data to make that information available. This is just one example. We have these types of examples across all the different verticals, whether it's retail, building, airport, healthcare, public utilities, so on and so forth. So our whole goal is really to kind of help customers, again, not piece things together, but to leverage tier one technology, put their IP in there as quickly as possible, and move forward. Go ahead, Bob. So if we look at what's going on in the industry as it relates to kind of the security trends and things that are happening, this year alone, according to IHS, there's going to be 98 million cameras shipped and deployed globally in 2017, over 400,000 body-worn cameras. As these cameras are being deployed, security has to be first and foremost in that environment. And over on the right side, 60% of the incidents today are attributed to errors by systems administrators, integrators, deployers, and that is a direct result of the complexity, the consistency to do that. It goes on to talk about how providing automated ways to go and solve these problems will significantly reduce that number, and that's definitely something we're going to talk in good detail about today. I mentioned a little earlier about IT versus OT, operational teams putting together video surveillance solutions. Just a couple of years ago, it was less than 54% of video surveillance solutions were having discussions and involving IT in deploying these solutions. That number is far higher, so there's good synergy there, but a lot of that has to do with making sure that these systems security is being thought of as upfront versus a reaction to that environment. And then another stunning statistic that I ran across in looking at the IHS information is that less than 1% of network cameras today are leveraging certificate, and there's no doubt certificate management is one of the most complex things out there. It takes a couple of minutes per camera. We're going to show you a way to take that number and cut it down into a fraction of that time. The other thing, and as it relates to the trends, the Mira botnet. These attacks are getting rather insane today. If you look at the recent one just a couple of months ago, in fact, you can go ahead and flip to the next slide, Rob. The Mira botnet is open source code. It's regularly available out there today. If you can actually, it's kind of scary, but everyone should go and look at this, but point a Chrome browser at a IP camera and press F12. It opens up the administrator console on the right-hand side. That console is going to show you every single bit of data, what information is being transitioned back and forth from the workstation you're on to that individual camera. Any IP-related device that has a browser information, there's a lot of information out there that is regularly available. And if you think of the hacktivists and folks that are focused on, taking advantage of these Mira botnet type solutions, the attack surfaces are absolutely enormous. I love this graphic in that it provides a good visibility of the different technologies and the layers of technology. So from the outside, your edge devices, so this would be your cameras and IoT gateways doing localized analytics, networks, platforms. That colorful wheel in the middle is, that could be a rotating circle, right? Because every one of those has all of the layers on the outside of it. But look at where the circles and the squiggly lines are at. The attack surfaces, especially around these newer devices that are coming out, edge gateways, the new IP cameras, there's all different types of sensors that are out there. They are brand new available attack surfaces that the hacktivist community is aggressively going after. So it's no longer kind of, focusing on just malware, similar to what happened in the Target type of a situation. These guys are incredibly organized. And actually, Rob, switch to the next slide. I love this graphic because it really shows what the hacktivist world looks like. It is incredibly organized crime activity. You have down in the lower left-hand corners very specialized people that know how to do spamming really, really well. It's not a group of folks that can do the end-to-end attacks. It's leveraging through encrypted communications across the blacknet, very specialized folks that do phishing attempts, spamming attacks, intruder and detection, as well as rogue web administrators. You have in the blue area people that focus on bank data or stealing credit card information or stealing identity information. They all communicate through this loosely, or quite organized network of folks. And when they go in for, say, focusing on like a Mira botnet attack, they're deploying through the phishing or zero-day, however they get there. But in the past, they would get in, maybe sit in, listen for a little bit. They're getting incredibly sophisticated and staying there, watching. So once that botnet gets in there, it looks at the pattern of the user. When are they logging in? What protocols are being leveraged? And then they replicate that to go and attack and capture the information that they are looking for. They also do that through, especially in the instances of the Twitter and Spotify attack on the DNS servers a couple months ago. They had systems that were infected for months. They were just sitting there dormant, listening to the infrastructure that they were at, and then figured out what is it that they wanted to kind of point the effect at. They're really creating this kind of game, if you will. That last Mira botnet attack was a denial of service attack that was approaching 1.2 terabytes per second. That is a significant increase from just 6-9 months ago, where the heaviest volume attack that took down the websites was in the, I believe, the 30 megabits per second range. That is what, 6,000% increase in speed, and it just shows you how organized these folks are. It's pretty crazy stuff. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. Ooh. I'm going to hurry up because we're moving along here, but I kind of described this already, but kind of a methodical, defined process of how these guys go in and do that effort. I'm going to let you look at it, but given the time, I want to make sure we save time for the demo at the end. But very organized way that they go in, exploit, capture, take command and control, and then take action and be able to organize those attacks from a variety of different areas. This is happening very aggressively in that video surveillance space. We're going to move into the next section now with Rob and let him talk about how certificate management kind of addresses these concerns and helps to eliminate situations like this from happening. Oh, yep, one more. Again, real quickly here, so yeah, it's fine. Leave it there. Working with Device Authority, great partnership that we have here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Rob. And
yeah, okay, no worries. So thanks for that, John. It's quite an interesting discussion there around the sort of markets and some of the sort of insights and trends for that. This kind of feeds into some of the thoughts I was having around the usages and what's helping to drive sort of IP camera market and the volume in those markets. And if you look at the traditional usage, I mean, obviously everyone's aware that traditional uses of cameras is monitoring security of perimeters or of real estate, if you like, or and checking to see what's happening on those areas. But more and more, we're seeing that different use cases appear. So things like building information management, where sort of environmental safety factors are critical. For example, if a user needs to go into a building, there's a fire, or there's something's fallen down or something's happened in that building, you might want to know about it. Then you're looking at things like business intelligence, things like people counting, queue analytics, or movement monitoring around different stores and the applications for that. So you could see a scenario whereby that data is used to help adjust a store layout, for example. And then there's scientific research and real-time analysis. So I put in here things like crowd movements and control, or traffic pattern analysis. If you look at, maybe for example, things like football grounds, where you want to sort of map people's movements in those football grounds and monitor the flow, even, for example. And that can be applied for traffic monitoring as well in like vehicle sort of applications. If you then look at the sort of traditional products here as well, I say traditional in the modern sense, look at consumer-based products, web baby monitors, webcams. I've seen quite a few products come on the sort of market recently for things like doorbells or entry systems where you've got a camera feed being directed to your mobile phone from that camera, so you can see who's coming into your building, so to speak. So I wanted to move on now really to talk about what we need to do to strengthen security for IP cameras and how we're going to automate security for efficiency at scale. And that's the key thing here in my view, is how do you automate securely monitoring and managing these cameras at scale. So just to cover this off in a few points here. So how are the sort of security problems occurring on these cameras, and what's the compromised security for these? Well, obviously one of them is like the weak username and passwords. If you look at a lot of the DDoS attacks that have happened recently or in the past, it's been because a lot of these cameras have been shipped with weak username and passwords, or default username and password, which is a problem. You then look at, well, those cameras are exposed through open access to port, so sometimes those cameras have a wide open set of ports which attackers can use to get into those cameras. You then look at, well, sometimes these cameras are, the firmware is typically baked in at the factory, and there's no real way to change them. So there's no way to post-deployment update the firmware in these cameras, which is a real problem. And these devices can become compromised without you knowing about it. So, you know, somebody's hacked into your camera, they're being used against your will without you knowing that that's happening. And once that's happening, there's no real way you can do anything about it. How do you, once it's been compromised, what do you do about it? And the last thing here is that I think it ties into John, where there's the 1% or less than 1% where cameras have been installed with certificates. It's very difficult to secure these cameras and deliver certificates to these cameras at scale because of the manual nature in which you have to install the certificate in the production line or in the manufacturing process. And I will go through an example of that in a minute where we can talk around what that process may look like. But sticking on the theme of security, and now we're talking about the impact of some of these compromised security problems. You look at, well, okay, what's going to happen? Well, my important data could be stolen. Is my video feed going to be compromised in some way? I can no longer control my devices. Are they going to be used in some form of attack, combined attack to take down a service? So that takes me on to the next point, which is service outages. You know, if you look at DIN, Twitter, and John was mentioning quite a few others, you know, there's a whole raft of services out there we could be taken down, which you will know nothing about. This means it's expensive to fix. How do I fix those products which have a weak security posture in the field? And how do I update them? How do I renew the security around that? There's no way to update the firmware, for example, or update the certificates. So that leads me on to the next point. Well, the product becomes useless. So does it mean I need to bin it? Can I put it in the bin because I can't do anything with it? So I have to go and rip it off of the building and install a new camera which has an improved security posture. The next thing really is, well, are my cameras going to be used in some kind of criminal terrorist activity? I mean, it's an awful thought, to be fair, but is a terrorist going to take control of my camera to understand what's happening in a certain area so they can then go and do a preventative attack against something? Which is not. Hey,
Rob, I got a good example for that one too. It's pretty interesting. Sure. Yeah, so about a year ago, there was a bank robbery, and the criminals had actually compromised the video surveillance solution and had eyes in the building for a couple of weeks prior, so they knew the patterns of the security officers and when the safes were open and when the doors were closed and what their protocol looked like to kind of shut down the environment, because you have access to behind the counters of the tellers and all that kind of stuff. On the day that they went in and actually robbed the bank, they actually had the video streaming to their phones. It's downright scary. You think you put surveillance up for to protect yourself, and in this instance, it's something that's, you know, getting used against you. Pretty crazy story.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, really good insight there. And the last one on my slide here really is, well, will I be sued? Will litigation follow if my product's become compromised in some way, has been used against me because I've, you know, haven't put a strong security posture around that? That's an interesting one to follow as well. So moving on, just looking at the way certificates are delivered today, most of the time, if you have certificates on a product, certainly in a camera sense, normally production is outsourced, and these certificates are installed at the manufacturing time. So a person at the end of production would manually request and install a certificate. Well, we're seeing a shift from this, to be honest. I think it's been born out of all the attacks that have happened and people realizing they really need to do something about securing and updating the security posture for their cameras. So customers are really needing to define the security posture for their cameras in an automated way, meeting the needs of their business, supply chain, and product. You know, if you think about, well, if I want to deliver 1,000 cameras or 10,000 cameras in the field, how do I do that in an automated way? Having a manual way to do that is just not practical in today's world, and it just wouldn't work. So why are we deploying cameras without a strong security posture? Well, I think this is really born out of the operational deficiencies and the impact of that. You know, it's all about the automation of cameras and how you deliver secure automation to cameras. So certificates are not being deployed because it's too difficult to do. It's just a really difficult process to install certificates in the production time. It also takes a long time to do it, and we'll go for an example of what sort of timing might involve with deploying a certificate on a camera. This is exposing the product to attack. Also, there's no real way to authenticate cameras at scale and register these cameras to a back office server type system. You know, if you're going to deploy 10 cameras, maybe you could do it with a person in the office with an admin clerk, and they're going to manage that. If you're talking about thousands and thousands of cameras, a manual process just isn't going to cut it. The next thing really here as well, passwords and firmware, you know, they're typically baked into the factory, and there's no real way to change them. Again, you know, if they're compromised somewhere, they might as well just bin the camera. There's no automated way to change these things. And the last thing here as well, there's no real way to revoke certificates. So, you know, cameras can be exploited, and there's nothing you can do about it at scale. You know, if you're talking about thousands and thousands of cameras, then you need to be able to automate the way in which you revoke these certificates or renew the certificate. So moving on to give you an example of the process. You know, we discussed some of the security challenges and the lack of automation there. And the reason why security in these cameras have been left, in my view, is it's too difficult at scale to do. And as an example, you can see here we've got a number of steps. So step 1 is, well, the SA technician loads the camera onto the bench. Step 2, he launches the camera management client. Step 3, logs into certificate authority or Active Directory. Step 4, we generate a certificate signing request for one camera. And step 5, we upload certificate signing request to the CA. And then step 6, we import a signed certificate to the camera. You know, we've seen examples where this can take 5 minutes or longer, actually. This is quite pessimistic, 5 minutes. I think it's a lot longer than this. But actually, you know, you scale that up to like 10,000 cameras, it's, you know, 50,000 minutes or 833 hours. My maths are correct there. It's quite a, you know, not an insignificant amount of time. The key thing to note here is all about automating this process to improve the security posture. You know, this is a one-time step. This is a one-time certificate delivery mechanism. There's no way in this process to update the certificates in an automated way and be able to renew them. It's just impossible. So in conclusion, the certificate installation is costly and impractical. Manual process at scale is just not possible. The manual process is open to errors. You know, you could see a scenario where the devices are shipped with the wrong certificate on board and perhaps leaving the camera non-functioning. There's no way to renew those certificates, so a man in a van would be too expensive and impractical to go around to many geographies and update the certificates, just be very impractical. So the cameras are very vulnerable as well. You think about, well, the same certificate could be used for the lifetime of the product that's installed. You know, and typically these cameras, you know, might use one certificate across many models that are deployed as well. So your security posture is very weak in that sense. And if you look at the password management, that suffers from the same sort of problems. You know, the passwords and usernames are set at default manufacturing time, they're shipped out the door, and there's no way to renew them or update them or automate that process. So I just want to walk you through now really what we are doing at Device Authority and what we're using to automate the camera security and certificate delivery specifically onto cameras. And this sort of diagram here shows you some of the key steps here. So we've got on the left-hand side, we have our Device Authority agent, which is basically an agent that runs on the camera. And from this agent, what we're doing is we're building a strong root of trust. So we're pulling out some of the entropy of that end device to understand things like the MAC address, some unique characteristics of it, maybe some serial numbers, operating system, memory configuration, that type of data, to build a strong root of trust in the camera and the endpoint. Then through step 1, what we have is a challenge response mechanism into our KeyScaler back-end service, where the device dials in and says, hello, I'm a device, I want to register with KeyScaler. And our KeyScaler platform responds and says, okay, I know you're a device, please tell me some information about your site. And actually, that challenge and response mechanism is very different every time. So the challenge would be different every time the device authenticates. Hopefully the camera will respond with the correct information, at which point we can open up a secure communication channel to the camera, because we can then register or authenticate that device with its known entropy to our KeyScaler platform. So at which point, once we've got that secure channel open, we can then, through step 2, we can generate a certificate and get it signed by a chosen certificate authority. In this case, could be DigiCert, Symantec, Global Sign, or a private CA, really doesn't matter actually. And then deliver that certificate through step 3 in an encrypted, secure way to the device. And you can see that on step 4, that we would then deliver the certificate onto the product. So we are, typically automating this process. In the previous slide, we talked about minutes. We're automating this process into seconds, and that's quite a powerful thing in itself. But the bigger picture here is we're automating it so that you can renew the certificates once the product's been deployed in the field. You can revoke the certificates at scale in an automated and controlled way. So you're taking, the scalability of this solution into context here. So as I mentioned, our main product is KeyScaler. I just wanted to cover some of the key basic functions and the components to our KeyScaler platform. So we have the device authority agent in that little cloud bubble on the top left, and that's really about securing the endpoint, having a strong root of trust there. On the top right-hand side, we have the management control panel. So that's really where a customer will get access to, manage his devices, set the policy around those devices, get access to some of the security dashboard functionality in our platform. In the middle bit, what we call the device authority engine. This is where your devices in the field would authenticate with our engine. We would have the device registry, and we do things like policy enforcement. On the bottom side here, you can see a label says service connectors. So this is really, if you like, a set of APIs so we can connect to some third-party services and platforms, the likes of ThingWorks, who we are partnered with, MachineShop, DigiCert from a CA, Symantec as a CA, then some hardware vendors as well, like the likes of Intel and Dell, for example. So in summary, today's solution, we are increasing the security with lower operating costs with our platform. We are providing a manufacturer-independent security posture. So this is really giving customer-specific certificates and credentialed and controlling those independently from the device manufacturing process. So it gives the ability for those camera owners to own their own security posture. We're automating camera security management, so the rapid deployment and ongoing of the security management of those surveillance cameras. Again, it's all tied into the automation of device registration and certificate provisioning here. The automation is the key thing. So this is really critical for scalability. So being able to scale for large-scale deployment of cameras for system integrators and customers with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of cameras across multiple locations. You simply can't deploy certificates at that scale without having an automated way to do that. And the next thing here is really being able to automate certificate renewal and revocation at scale so that you can improve your security posture for your product, being able to renew those certificates on a regular basis, being able to revoke certificates on a regular basis, depending upon what your security posture needs to be and how robust sort of product you want to push into the field. So we don't stand still in device authority. We are constantly developing our products and improving our products through our roadmap activities. And some of the future activities we're building out are things like the automated administrative password management. So this is giving the ability for remote provisioning of device-specific passwords, and this is removing the vulnerabilities of manufacturer default passwords. So I see, for example, if you have a number of technicians that are installing cameras and one of those technicians were to leave, then you might want to be able to remotely update those passwords on those cameras. So you're closing out that security loop for that person misusing those passwords that he's installed on those cameras. Next point here is, well, integrity check your end devices and validate them. This is where we're going to be building in ability to basically check the firmware environment on that endpoint And if it changes in any way, then we can be notified about that change, and then you can quarantine the device, because maybe perhaps there's some malware managed to get on the device and you want to be able to do something about it. The next thing here is, well, really secure firmware updates and then the data delivery of those. So it's the encrypted secure delivery of packages and the authentication of those nodes to ensure you can deliver those packages to those endpoints. And then being able to run campaigns of firmware updates on groups of devices as well, so you can push firmware updates to those devices in a remote, secure way. And the next thing here really is, well, being able to provide unauthorized host and service filtering, so being able to whitelist specific devices to come and access your product and prevent attackers from compromising your product through unauthorized access. So that's really it from me in terms of slideware. What I'd like to do now is to walk you through a demo of our automating security for IP cameras. And what you're going to see is basically security automation setup and how we've basically connected our KeyScaler platform and our device agent and some cameras to DigiCert Central service connector. And we've got a common name template, which we're going to walk through and show you what the meaning of that is. We've got some certificate provisioning policy, so specific policy on how we deliver certificates to groups of devices, and you have device groups there, and also the device registration control record. So how do I provision these devices into my KeyScaler platform, and what credentials do I use for that? And at the bottom here, the key thing for the demo is really to show you is an automated device registration, the group assignment, and then a certificate authority signed certificate provisioning for those cameras. So I'm quickly going to swap to my video window here, and you should be able to see this. So if I quickly go through this demo, you will see that we have a number of camera types here. We have two actually. We have a couple of access cameras here, the Q1635 and the P3225. And these are cameras which have basically our agent embedded on those cameras. So what now we're going to do is I'm going to go into our KeyScaler platform, and on the front panel here you can see a number of key areas. So we've got system statistics, so things like device authorizations, what's been blacklisted, what the recent security alerts are, any device has been quarantined, and then any recent activity. Perhaps there's been devices that are registered to the platform. And if I carry on moving through this, we're going to go into manage devices, and the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to register my device or my devices into our KeyScaler platform. And there's two ways to do this. We can do it at an individual level, or I can do a bulk level provision, which means that I can import many different provision records in one go through using a CSV file. So if I carry on, we have a pre-built file here we're using for these two cameras. And you can see in this window here that what we're actually using for this bulk provisioning of these devices and for the device records themselves is, well, the platform itself, which is Linux. We'll use the MAC address, and then we're going to assign these two devices to a group called access cameras. So I'm now going to import these, and we've got an import devices button. So that was successful, which is great. I'm now going to go on to look at where the managing pending registration. So you can see here that we've got now two device records into our KeyScaler platform with the MAC addresses associated with those platforms, with those cameras, and also the platform associated with that. And you can also see on the right hand side, what will be coming up is that there's a validity window. There's valid from, valid to. So we can set policy around when these cameras can register to our KeyScaler platform. So now what I'm doing is I've gone on to, I've set up a couple of PuTTY sessions to my cameras, these two cameras, and what I'm going to show you is the certificate delivery mechanism. So I've logged onto these cameras, and as you can see on the top left-hand window and the right-hand window, I've just checked to see if there's any certificates on the cameras at the moment, and there isn't. There's nothing in those directories. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to reboot these cameras, and what this is simulating is the cameras booting up from the first time after install, simulating the first power up. So what happens here is the device authority agent launches on the camera. The agent registers the device to KeyScaler, and then the certificate is requested and delivered as defined by a group policy. So as the demo moves through, we will see that on the left-hand window here, you can see the device registration has been successful as we zoom in, which is good. So the device is registered to our KeyScaler platform. And now what you can see is the asset, there's a new asset been found and it's been processed by our device agent. Now if we mount the certificate directory again, you'll see one certificate in there. And then you can see a certificate and the text of that certificate. And the same for the right-hand side. So through that whole process there, which took a matter of seconds, you can see we've registered the device, we've connected to our KeyScaler back office server, we've then gone out and got a certificate signed by DigiCert and then delivered in a secure way back to the camera. Now I'll move back to our KeyScaler platform, and you can see that the pending registration certificates have been consumed. And you can see that those devices are now been registered to the platform, and you can see the date of registration there. I'm now going to look at manage device groups, and I'm going to look at the access camera device groups. And you can see here that we have a group policy for this camera, which is a DigiCert certificate for access cameras. And the policy provisioning, well, the policy type is a credential provisioning type. Now you can see that there's two cameras been assigned to this group, and that's through the registration process, which we just saw through those two putty sessions. So now we're going to go into the manage policies. I'm just going to show you the policy for device provisioning. You can see here that we have a policy name at the top, which was basically the device, the DigiCert certificates for access cameras, the type, which is device certificates, and then the policy description. And then moving down here, you can see that we have a connector profile, which we've selected the DigiCert connector for access cameras, and we're using a common name template. In this instance, is going to be the MAC address. Then we have some credentials associated with this for accessing the DigiCert service, if you like. And that's particularly the email address. And then the signature algorithm used was SHA-256. Now this window here, you can see that the validity period is 1 year, and the auto-renew function has been ticked, and then we can renew those certificates in a 30-day period. So this is automating the renewal of those certificates, and you can specify this to your own needs. So we carry on here. You will see that actually this is the basis of the policy. And you can see that there's a directory in which you can specify where to store the certificates, and then the devices will become part of a group. This policy is part of a group called access cameras. Now if we look at the common name template, we've got the template name, which has been in by the MAC address. And if I go to look at the managed credential connector, you can see that we have a connector here called DigiCert Connector Access, and this is really specifying the API credentials needed to access the DigiCert connector or the service backend, so we can order up certificates. And of course, you can't see our key because it's obviously private to us. So let's just recap one-time setups. So we have the device group access cameras, we have the group policy for that, DigiCert certificates for access, and we have two members in that group. We then have a credential provisioning policy, which is DigiCert certificates for access cameras, which has a connector profile, and it has a common name template associated with that. And we store that in a directory called certificates device, and then a device and a certificate name. And then the final thing here I really wanted to show you is once we've gone and we've set up and registered our devices and they've been installed and running on our platform, we can, if we wanted to, quarantine the product. So in this instance, we're just quarantining this camera. If we go to the quarantine tab, you can see that the certificate has now been revoked from that camera. Now, if I want to reauthorize that camera, I can set the reauthorize button, and you can see that the camera's now reappeared into my group, and there'll be a pending certificate request for delivering a new certificate to that camera. So we've gone off, our KeyScaler platform's gone off to DigiSearch or get another certificate signed so we can push that to the camera. And that's really it from myself and John for now. And what I'm going to do is pass over to Rosa to go through some questions.
Thanks, Rob. We've actually had quite a large number of questions, so we will answer them all after the webinar if we can't get through to them, but I'm just going to shoot over first to John. John, there was a question during your slides asking what is the method for identification, authentication, authorization that you use for IoT endpoints?
That's a great question, and I believe Rob just did a great job of showing you an excellent way to go solve that problem. But that is the challenge that exists out there today, is every edge device has a different interface, a different login path, a different set of ports they need to connect to, whether that's via browser or SSH, which introduces a lot of complexity. Using a solution clearly like Device Authority gives you the ability to push that agent down and then bring it under management, and just makes, again, a very scalable way to quickly manage thousands and tens of thousands of devices through the Device Authority interface.
Thanks, John. And Rob, just quickly a question for you. Does the KeyScaler agent provide data protection at rest and in transit via an encryption capability, or is it dependent on the end device's crypto?
So that's a really good question. So our end device, our end agent, if you like, in the camera in this instance, you know, we're showing one mechanism here to deliver certificates to those endpoints. On the same flip of the coin, we can, in fact, and we have integrated our solution with the likes of ThingWorks platform, where we can secure the data from end to end. And that means from the device itself through any transport mechanism you like. It could be an unsecure network or many unsecure networks, through into a platform, or sometimes could be hosted in the cloud, whereby the data is still encrypted at rest. And we're not creating new crypto libraries here. We're hooking into the standard cryptography mechanism, so typically things like AS256. But the key thing here is that our agent itself and KeyScaler, there's no sharing of keys between the two. And the way that we do that, because KeyScaler understands some of the entropy of the endpoint, and that obviously the endpoint knows the entropy itself, what we can do is independently create the same kind of crypto keys, and they are session-based keys. So if you can imagine, you know, it's quite secure having an AS256 based key anyway. But if you had a session which is, you know, running for say 30 seconds, and then you tore down a session and restarted it, that new session would have a different key. So you're increasing the security posture yet even further using our technology.
Great, thanks, Rob. Apologies we haven't been able to answer everyone's questions, but we will follow up individually. We've now come to the end of our webinar. A big thank you to our speakers, John and Rob. I'd like to thank you, everyone, for their time and interest, and we look forward to speaking to you further in the near future.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.